On the agenda tonight, we're going to be taking a look at some crowd shot footage of Robert Downey Jr. and Sting performing Driven to Tears. Hello, Phil here from Wings of Pegasus and welcome to another analysis video. If you enjoy this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe. So we looked at this performance recently and I was pointing out the use of pitch correction in parts on this performance, and I love it when there is crowd shot footage because I always say in my analysis videos that when you're watching the performance live, you will hear the vocal, because more often than not, with artists like Sting and Robert Downey Jr. being invited to perform with Sting, they're not going to be using auto-tune because it is quite abrupt and it's quite obvious and it can go wrong in a live setting. So when you're talking about good vocalists anyway, they'll generally just sing live. So you get to hear it live. But when it's then released publicly, either on YouTube or as a DVD or Blu-ray or anything, it's more than often going to be pitch corrected. So this is the case in this particular performance. So because this is crowd shot footage, it means that we get ambient noise in there, you know, people screaming and talking, all that kind of stuff. But the lead vocal does cut through in places, so we can compare that to the vocal from the public release. But let's have a listen to the crowd shot footage, see what's going on.
How can you say that I'm responsible?
Okay, so I'm going to jump in here just to point out a few things. And I mean, when we're looking at the right hand side here, I mean, Robert's voice is really accurate. You know, as I said in that first video, he wouldn't have been invited to sing on stage with Sting if he couldn't sing. So when we're looking at these lines, I mean, we look pretty accurate here on the D sharp 4, but when we look at the public release, you can see that the D sharp 4 is actually down here. The note that he should have been hitting was the E4. So there's, well, quite a clear example of pitch correcting the vocal because he was a semitone off with the live performance and has been made to hit the note, you know, really closely on the public release. So yeah, that's a clear indication there. And I mean, here, really accurate, and I don't think there's been too much pitch correction on that. Well, this doesn't need it, but we'll just have a listen on, see what else we can hear. And during the chorus, because we've got backing vocals and Sting and people shouting and screaming, obviously we're not getting an isolated feed of just Robert's voice because there's other voices going on. But when we get into the verses, we're able to hear it more clearly. Now, I remember this from that first video, this C4 that was hands, hands, hands. You know, it kind of got stuck on that. You know, it is really, yeah, overly pitch corrected. But then when we look at the right-hand side, you can see that he was ever so slightly sharp. So there's no way that this needs correcting because it is definitely close enough. If we look down here as well, you can see this kind of flow that we have to Robert's voice where he's slightly flat and then goes sharp, but then here on the left hand side we're just kind of directly over that line all the time. But let me just take it back to this hand this sound that we get, and we'll listen to the crowd or the live one, the real live unedited version first. Hands, you know, it sounds natural because it is, but let me now bring on the edited version.
Shame wells in my throat.
Oh, I mean, straight away you can hear the processing going on, but let's listen to this.
My face in my hand.
Yeah, Yeah, it just sounds, I mean, the thing is, and the problem is that when you pitch correct it to this kind of level, being directly over, you know, A440 standard pitch, it just sounds unnatural because it's too accurate to go straight up to that note and just nail it, whereas sliding up and being slightly sharp sounds more natural. So even the sound of it kind of gives it away that it's pitch corrected, but ironically it didn't need any pitch correction, so they should have left it as it was just to make it sound a bit more natural. And there, I mean, yeah, you can see that here we're, well, a little bit more over the line than here we're kind of sharp all the time. And I mean, this is good because we can see where we've got this M shape. I don't know if you can see that, but I'm looking here. We've got this M, and this is the same M, but when it was unpitch corrected. So you can see how it's been dragged over this line when in fact it was sharp. And then we have a little line here that is sharp, whereas the line here is now over the line. And then we go up to between the notes, whereas now we go up to perfectly over the A3. The great thing about this, and you know, looking at the live vocal from the crowd shot footage, I can show you where the actual vocal was and where the pitch corrected vocal is from the live performance. And the thing is that when I'm looking at these vocal lines, of course, in my videos, I can say, you know, this is pitch corrected because here we're calibrated to A440 standard pitch. But then some people will say, oh, but maybe they're just that good. And I always say that this isn't being good, being pitch corrected, because the human voice and vocal cords don't work like this. They can't work like this, you know, just conforming to A440 standard pitch. You'll always see variation in a natural voice. But with this, I can show you that what I was saying in that previous video was true. That it was pitch corrected, not even having the original to compare it to, just by reading these lines. Because, yeah, there's such a significant difference between looking at lines of a natural voice and looking at lines of a pitch-corrected voice or an auto-tune voice. And this is another thing that some people, when they're going to watch a live performance, they might think that when they're watching them, it's a bit sharp, it's a bit flat, and maybe the vocalist is a bit pitchy for a song or two. But then they watch it on YouTube a few days later or on TV, and it now sounds really accurate. And they think, well, wow, why does it sound so different to how it sounded on the night? You know, was it the acoustic space, resonant frequencies? What was going on? But they don't realise that when it gets released publicly on YouTube or TV or for, you know, DVD, Blu-ray, whatever, it's edited. It is pitch corrected. It's an industry standard to do it with not only voices in the studio, but on live performances as well. So this is why when you're watching a live performance and you think that the singer might be having an off day, and then you watch it a few days later, it's totally changed. It's because the vocal has been adjusted. And yeah, this is the evidence that we can see on screen, but not just for Robert Downey Jr.'s voice, but for everybody's vocal. Yeah, pretty much. As I said, it is an industry standard, so it is a standard process to make the voice better than it was when you're listening to it, or more accurate than it was. But let's listen on. Another good example here, where this na 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 na, I mentioned in that first video, we've got lots of words here, and it's trying to maintain a pitch on this C4. And of course here, because it's pitch corrected, it has been stuck to the C4. But on the right hand side, you can see that Robert started quite flat and only really got to pitch right at the end of the note, rather than, you know, being on the note the whole time. So yeah, I did mention that it's very difficult, and doing this, maintaining pitch like this all the time, is difficult to do, and it just looked a little bit too manipulated for me. And we can see that, yeah, the actual vocal wasn't on there. It's good as well, because I did say on that first video that it would have been great to have heard Robert Downey Jr.'s voice without the pitch correction. So at least we're getting an appreciation of it now, that, yeah, he does have a great voice and has really accurate pitch. But sadly, we didn't get to appreciate that because of the pitch correction previously. And again here, E4, bang on, but here we're actually closer to the D sharp 4, so we're about a semitone off there tuning wise as to where Robert's voice should be. So yeah, another clear indication here of just editing that vocal. And let me just say this, and this is the problem with pitch correction. Robert Downey Jr. has hit this E4 bang on in real life. So here you can see that he's straight over this E4. And on the left-hand side, of course, because it was bang on, you can't pitch correct it, or at least it didn't need pitch correcting. So it is still over that line. And yeah, this is the problem, that because every other part of the performance is pitch corrected, of course, when it's stuck to this line, the only reasonable explanation for that is that, well, because it's all pitch corrected. So this is why it's stuck to the line. But ironically, this is a note, an actual note that isn't pitch corrected, because Robert Downey Jr. hit it this accurately live. So there you go. There's the problem with pitch correction, that, you know, singers might not be getting the recognition they deserve. I know we're just talking about one note here, but, you know, it's still just pointing out that pitch correcting a vocal means that the whole vocal is now devalued, because you think, well, if he hits it on a line and holds that note, it's pitch corrected, whereas he was actually that accurate live. So yeah, I mean, it's one note, but, you know, let's give credit where it's due. Okay, we're building up to the guitar solo, so I'm just going to skip over that because we looked at that in the previous video and got the guitar out. But let's listen to this. Again, here, the C4, futile. That C4 was kind of between notes here, but here we're bang over that line. And here again, almost between notes here, instead of hitting that A3 bang on, but now we're directly over that A3. This is showing that without the reference of the right hand side, you can still tell when something is pitch corrected because of the calibration to A440 standard pitch, but also just the way that these lines look. A natural voice just looks different, you know, when it's allowed to go where it goes, rather than manipulating the voice to stick to these lines. I mean, I don't stop all the time, but you saw there how we start between the lines here and then we ascend. And again, really accurate vocal there. This has just been shallowed out again to stick on that E4, but doesn't need pitch correction, in my opinion. And by the way, I mean, Sting is such an accurate vocalist. Anyway, you can hear when his voice comes in, he's just absolutely bang on. And when I say bang on, I mean not pitch corrected, you know, like the other performance, but, you know, it just sounds perfect to the ear, you know, singing in a pitch perfect way. What should it be? And there, I mean, on that particular Driven to Tears by Sting, you can hear that he's flat of the note, but it's a live performance. That's what happens. You know, it's not getting kind of snapped to the line for the, you know, public release. So it's great to hear that kind of thing because you know it's live, but that's just what the natural voice does. And Sting's voice, by the way, is not going to be hitting these lines all the time in a live performance because it's impossible. He will hit them now and again, But you will hear where, yeah, it's a little bit sharp, it's a little bit flat, but that's what live performances are all about. And there we have it. And again, here's the unfortunate contradiction is you can hear, and we might get a little bit of it with Robert's final kind of scream. He was sharp of the E4, but then this has been pitch corrected onto the E4. So it's exactly the opposite. And this is why it's impossible, you know, to say that something isn't pitch corrected when the whole rest of the performance is, because here the held note's been pitch corrected over the line, but it was sharp. So yeah, that was a little bit off that time, but you're still absolutely fine. I just want to mention something that I didn't mention in that first video, the way that Sting opens up with his vowels on T's. But have a listen to this. He kind of gets this T's, and he kind of just opens out. It sounds great. You know, I really like that sound, and giving you that contrast just in one word and changing that vowel from the E, which is more of a kind of I rather than an E, kind of a true kind of E, but it's kind of halfway in between. I mean, of course, if you wanted to, you could keep that vowel the same from the E, really going tears, tears, you know, but that doesn't sound as cool as going tears, you know. So there you go. Just a cool thing that Sting does, and it's unique to him, and I'm sure it's just something that he does naturally, and he didn't really think, oh, let me change the vowel halfway through. It just kind of happens, but that's his artistry coming through. But anyway, yeah, interesting video to look at tonight, because we have the original audio, or at least the crowd shot footage, to be able to compare that previous analysis video to show what happens when you pitch correct a vocal. So keep those suggestions and requests coming in the comment section below. As always, let me know what you guys think, and if you did enjoy this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe, and I'll catch you guys at the next one. Rock!